Okay, so this is the user interface, or sometimes we'll refer to it as the dashboard. This is where you do your searches. Before we get started, I'll just point out up here where it says available searches, this is where you track your credits or the number of searches you have available. So when you purchase them, this is your tracker up here. Um, well, for this, I'll just go ahead and I'll search myself. I'm just going to walk you through the two different kinds of reports, and then just how to fully utilize everything in here and a couple little shortcuts along the way. So we'll get started and say maybe I saw a vacant house. I look it up on the appraisal district and it belongs to me. So I get it from the appraisal district. I already know the address. So I look up the owner name. It's Larry Higgins or Lawrence. Then I'm just going to fill in these fields. Let's see. And now just hit search. Give this a second. And I did not use a middle name or initial. You do not have to fill that in. You can, it's just not required. So by using name and address, the full address, here's my report. This is result 1 of 1. There's only one of me at this address, so that makes sense. Here's my full name, age, the date of birth. Now, if I were deceased, which especially with vacant houses, you're going to find those, you'd see deceased here in big red bold text. And it also showed date of death, which the date of death does help you to find obituaries occasionally if you have to do an obituary search. Or it's just good to know, like, when did this person die? 5 months ago or 5 years ago. So that's important information to have. Right here we have address history, and this is kind of cool. You'll see um, this as of 10/27/2017. This is showing I'm still at this address according to this address history. None of these others even make it to 2017. So these two Fort Worth addresses, that's where I lived years ago, right after college. We were building an apartment complex. This was the apartment I lived in. So you see Trails End Drive. It's got the apartment number. This is Trails End Drive. It just doesn't have the apartment number. That you'll see that a lot with apartments, where you'll see one address with the apartment and one just the street address. Um, then you see this property here. I've never lived here. I owned it briefly. It was the first house I flipped. I bought it, turned around and owner financed it with I sold it with owner financing pretty quick after that, probably within 3 or 4 months, maybe even faster than that. But it shows up being associated with me. This house right here, this is the house I grew up in. You'll see it shows 1998 to 2014. I actually haven't lived in this house until 1998, or since 1998. That's when I went off to college. So sometimes it takes a while. There's no hard cutoff date. Like, okay, you move one day into a new property and it just drops off your record, the old property. This stuff it takes a long time sometimes for the addresses to fall off. So it can look like you're living at multiple places at one time. In this scenario, it's clear cut because I'm the only one. This is the only address that shows up for me in 2017. So say I wanted to go knock on the door or send a letter. I don't send letters, but if I did, I would feel relatively confident that this would be a good address. Possible email addresses. I don't care what service you use. Email addresses are they're spotty, but there's 5 emails here. One of these is a good email for me. It's the very first email account I ever set up, and it's the oldest. I still use it. I just don't check it real frequently. And this is the bread and butter of what most people are looking for: phone numbers. Like I tell people, uh, there's no way to cut out the old or bad numbers without risking eliminating the good numbers. So this shows I've got 6 phone numbers. These two were phone numbers I was associated with when I lived in Fort Worth years ago. They're still on my record. My very first cell phone number's on here. My current cell phone number's on here, as well as an associated cell phone number. So I might have to dial three, four, five, maybe even six numbers to get to the right one, but I have a good phone number in here. So over here, we've got financial distress indicators. So if I had any bankruptcies, liens, or judgments, you would see a count. One bankruptcy, five liens, two judgments. You get the idea. That's important just to kind of have an idea of what's going on with that person. If you're trying to prioritize who's got the most financial distress, they're going to probably be more likely to want or need the money from selling a property. So at a glance, that's really good information to have. And this is really cool here. The possible relatives. These are possible close relatives. In my report, it's pretty dang accurate. That's a sister. That's my other sister. That's my dad. That's my grandfather. That's my deceased great grandfather who I never met. He died before I was born. That's a sister. That's my grandmother. That's my brother who passed away. That's my mother who passed away. So these are all pretty close relatives. If you were to reach any of these people, they're pretty good contacts to have. So say you couldn't find me, you couldn't either say you had a good number for me, I wouldn't call you back, or you just couldn't get a good phone number. At that point, if it's a good lead, I don't hesitate to call a close relative. So you'll see I've got 160 searches. Let's say I couldn't get, I'm trying to get in touch with Lawrence or Larry. I can't get him on the phone for whatever reason. I'm just going to pull one of his relatives reports. I've got 160 searches. I'm just going to click on this name. It's hyperlinked. I'm going to pull that report. This is a brand new search. And I do this all the time. I pull relatives reports because I'm chasing truly distressed leads. The owners are either deceased or just they're hard to get on the phone sometimes. I don't hesitate to pull relative reports. So now I pulled her report by clicking on the name. I had 160 searches. Now I've got 159. And this is my sister's report. This address right here, this was on my report. This is the house that we grew up in. So it's natural that it would show up on her report as well. This was my grandparents, that same neighborhood. This was my grandparents' house. She actually lived with my grandparents for a short period to help take care of my grandfather while she was in college. Then it's got her relatives, a lot of overlap obviously, but it's got like her husband's family's information as well because that's her family. And then you've got her phone numbers and same thing here. So that's a pretty cool way of searching. So let's say I did that. I'm going to say I want to back up. I'm just going to hit the back button right here. I want to go back to my report. Okay, so now we're back at my report. Let's say that I can't get anybody on the phone, and let's say the mailing address for the property I'm looking at is different. So the property I'm interested in is 1112 Hillcrest Drive. Let's say that the mailing address is this one right here. If I can't reach me, I may just go right here, click on this address, and we're going to see what happens. The reason why, it's like, if that's the mailing address, who's there? What's going on with that? So when I do that, it's just an address report. And it's going to pull up everybody that's associated with that address. So basically, I'd be looking at people with the same last name as the property owner that I'm trying to reach, things like that. And this pulls back all that information. So that's a pretty cool little shortcut you can use. It did charge me a search. I went from 159 to 158. So let's go back to the original. So now we're back here. And so that was using the link, just clicking on the address. One little shortcut when you're searching, the owner name. You get that from the appraisal district when you have a property. Is I rarely enter the first name. or enter a name when I do a search, I'll just enter the address and then hit search. So I know I'm looking for Larry Higgins. I'm just going to search the address with no names, and let's see how this works. Okay, I get 18 results, but result 1 of 18, oh, that's Larry Higgins. So he's at the top. That's the one I was looking for. But it pulls back everybody else. My dad shows up. My mother who's passed, my grandfather, and all these people were kind of associated with this house. So that's a pretty cool tool. It's a shortcut, saves you on so much typing. If you know exactly who you're looking for and the address, you can just do the address. Another little shortcut, you don't have to fill city and state all the time. If you have the street address and the zip code, that's the minimum. So let's search that. And you see, if you're doing a lot of searches, those little things, those little shortcuts, they add up and they save you time. So, same results, 1 of 18, Larry Higgins at the top. So that's just a quick little shortcut there, and you can see every time you search, that's a credit, that's a search. So I'm down to 156. So let's say I can't get Larry on the phone for whatever reason. Maybe I only have one or two relatives showing up, and either they're deceased or I just can't reach them either. That can happen. Sometimes, like I said, people are hard to get in touch with for different reasons. Or, let's just say only one relative showed up and they were deceased. That's a scenario you're going to find if you do this enough. What I'm going to do is run the relationships report. And this is going to pull back even more potential relatives, possible relatives. So I'm at 156 searches. The relationships report, it's a powerful report, but it does count as 2 searches. So it's 2 credits, and when you run the report, they'll get deducted. So I'm at 156. Once this report comes up, I should be at 154 searches in my account. There you go. So I just lost 2 searches, but that's okay because I'm doing what I need to do to get in touch with people. So on the relationships report, the same basic information still presented as the basic report. Here's all the relatives that showed up on my basic report. On the relationships report, you get so many more relatives generally. Not always, but generally. Sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. Like with me, I've got quite a few relatives. So you've got first degree relatives. These should be, in general, these are going to be your closest relatives. In this case, it's pretty accurate. Then you've got second degree relatives. Then you've got third degree relatives, which, second degree is going to be a little bit looser, a little bit looser association, but the way they compile all this info, they're saying there's a connection there. Third degree relatives. And then you can see there's a lot of them. You get down to likely associates. Likely associates can actually be close relatives sometimes. It's just a very, these databases pick it up. It's a loose connection. They know there's something there. They're just not sure what. So it's a likely associate down to possible associate. And so, like I said, on this relationships report, it's pretty, I have a lot of results. Sisters, grandmother. This is my sister's mother-in-law. This is my second cousin's wife. This is my second cousin. This is my brother-in-law. This is my ex-brother-in-law. This is my brother-in-law's brother. So you see there's, all kinds of information here. And sometimes you'll make these crazy, you'll call, you don't know who you're calling, obviously. You're just dialing, hoping to find somebody that can help you get in touch with that owner. I've got a bunch of second cousins that are showing up on here, but they know me. If you call them, they're probably not going to give you my phone number, but they'll pass a message along. I know that much. So let's go down. When I was talking about likely associates, this is my cousin. He's like a brother to me. If you need to reach me, he's probably one of the best people you can contact. Again, he's probably not going to give you my info, but he'll let me know you've called. I think the biggest reason he shows up as a connection is he and this guy right here, a friend of ours, we were roommates for a bit in college. I think that's how they picked that up. So that's the information here. If you get down beyond possible associates, you even get to phone to neighbors. I don't call a lot of neighbors, but I do when I'm just when I'm grasping for information. This guy knows me well. If you called him again, if he knew me, knew how to reach me, he would get that message to me. Probably not going to give you my number, but he would at least get the message to me. Um, so very powerful. It's going to help you get in touch. In 2016, we used this report a lot on a very specific list that we worked. We would pull this report automatically. We had a full-time caller, and she would just dial all day long. And this is the exact report that she used. Yes, it's more expensive, but it paid off huge dividends for us. And the time saved, research saved. It's a little overkill in some circumstances, but it's definitely a very valuable tool to have. Wouldn't use it on every scenario, but when you're at a dead end, it's very worthwhile. And there's no guarantee if you only see one relative in here or two relatives on the basic report, you can pull the relations report and maybe you don't get any new names out of it. That's still progress. Like maybe no, it doesn't show any other new relatives. That's still progress in the sense that now you've got a tough one. It's telling it's like you're grasping at straws now. So now you need to take additional steps, sometimes outside of this interface, where we get into a little bit more researching through various other means. Another potential downside to this is some of these phone numbers get cut off. See, I've got 6 phone numbers here. What happens is it keeps it to 2 or 3 phone numbers per person on the relationships report. You're still going to reach people. It's just not pulling back every phone number associated with them. Like if we go to this guy, and it allows you to just pull his individual report if you need to. So we're going to click on his report. He's got 1 phone number showing here. And then you can see he's got 2 phone numbers showing. So one of them did not show up on the relationships report, and that's okay. At least I know he exists now. I would not have known that he existed on just the basic report because he wasn't listed as a relative. If you look at his address history, his is pretty clear. This is a pretty hard stop and start date. You don't see this a lot. So it shows he was at this address until June of 2016, but in May of 2016 to the present day, he's at this address. That's when he bought this house. So you see kind of how powerful that can be. So let's go back and I'll show you how to download the reports. We're going to go back to, let's just go zip code. Hit search. So let's see here. Okay. It's real important as you're doing this, download your reports. Okay, this is who I want to reach. Well, I do this automatically. It's just habit. When I find the person I'm looking for, I download their report. This is going to give me a PDF report. So I just downloaded it. Here it is. All of my information, all the same information: name, age, date of birth, phone numbers, address history, email addresses, likely possible relatives, and the financial distress indicators. That's the PDF version. You can also do a CSV if you prefer a spreadsheet. So let's pull this up. Okay, so here's the spreadsheet version of that. This comes in handy if you want to just upload it to an auto dialer, or you just prefer spreadsheet format. It's all right here. Same, again, pretty much the exact same information. On the spreadsheet format, we do leave out like date of birth and things like that. This is really more for automation. It gives you the key information. Again, key contact information. You see my numbers. It lists those relatives, possible relatives. Doesn't give you the contact info. Just like right here, it doesn't give you contact info. It just lets you know, hey, these are the relatives if you need to reach them. So that's the CSV spreadsheet version of that. So that's going to help you just as you find the people, uh, download those reports so you don't lose track of them. You don't want to have to go back and search them and then use another search. Just download the reports. And you can do the same downloading with the relationships report. So we're going to go ahead and pull this one again. It gives you the same options for downloading. So let's say I want to download the PDF because I prefer PDFs. So here it is, the basic report at the top, and then the relationship report here at the bottom with all the additional relatives, phone numbers, etc. So that is a quick little tutorial on how to use this user interface. Hopefully these little shortcuts and just knowing the different options. Hopefully that helps you be a little bit more efficient with your time and how you do your searches.